been interesting. The rise of digital payments anyway, due to COVID, some big investors throwing the towel in and saying, fine, I was a skeptic, I've changed my mind. Square, PayPal getting involved. What's driving the gains this year in your mind?
Well, first of all, Julia, thank you for having me back. It has definitely been an exciting year across crypto. I think one of the most macro important dynamics that is driving the crypto markets is the fact that many governments around the world are printing more fiat currencies. Here in the United States, you see, trillions of dollars of stimulus, and that means that we're inflating the U.S. dollar. And when you inflate the U.S. dollar, there's many people that want to hold non-inflationary assets. You've seen the same dynamic really with gold and the year that gold has had. And so I think people are seeing crypto as, in some cases, a inflationary hedge. As you pointed out, you're seeing names like Paul Tudor Jones and Stan Druckenmiller come into crypto and see it as a investable asset. And I think those are important dynamics that are driving this market.
So you're saying that the greater share of the gains that we're seeing are being driven by the store of value argument here for digital currencies or digital assets, perhaps, rather than utility function, which differs depending on which digital currency you're talking about, and quite dramatically.
Yeah, look, I have said for years, and I've said with you, I violently believe that the long-term value of any digital asset is going to be derived from its utility. I think one utility is store of value, and you're seeing that across Bitcoin. You're seeing that across other cryptocurrencies that don't have an inflationary dynamic. As you introduced in the beginning of the segment, Ripple is using an open source digital asset, Xrp, to solve a payments problem. And it's extremely good at that because it's extremely fast and extremely cheap on a per transaction basis, particularly at a time when a Biden administration is arriving. And I think things like climate change, things like environmental impact of energy usage will increase on the importance and the radar. I think there'll be more and more attention on the efficiency and scalability of a technology like XRP, in contrast to other technologies that have what we call proof of work or mining, which takes a massive amount of power, as you know well, having followed this space.
Yeah, I mean, you tweeted about this. You said, hey, if we've got a government that's going to be more climate change focused, which clearly President Biden will be, then perhaps people like Square that are investing in Bitcoin need to be aware of this. I will point out, and you've also pointed out, that you are a Bitcoin holder. You want all currencies to succeed here, but again, it goes back to the idea of distinguishing between them. Do you see this as the end of perhaps Bitcoin dominance? It is talked about most. It has the largest market share. And particularly when I go back to the chart that I just showed of the rise in value over the last 12 months, there is a relative outperformance of some of the other digital assets here versus Bitcoin. Is this the moment where we see the beginning of the end of the dominance of Bitcoin?
Well, I think Bitcoin's going to remain a very important kind of player within the crypto community. It has been, and I think will continue to be, for so many people, and even as you mentioned, Square and others, that when they first get involved with crypto, they start with Bitcoin, and then from there they expand their portfolio. I think it's important to have that entry point, getting people comfortable. And so I don't think it'll change dramatically. I think Bitcoin has been, I think will continue to be, solving a use case, that utility question around store of value. But as you pointed out, I think they're going to see micro cases or even very large cases. In the case of XRP as a payments tool, particularly the way Ripple uses it for cross-border payments, you're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars that are flowing across border in a system that was really designed and built 50 years ago. I'm sure you personally have had the experience of moving money cross borders, and it's slow and it's expensive. And we can and will enable much more efficient and much cheaper solutions.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of steam engine technology, and it's not 21st century. We've talked about it on the show before. Talk to me about regulation, because this is what it distills down to, what the future of regulation looks like. You've said, look, we're a patriotic US company. We want to remain here, but the regulation here is, to some degree, suppressing innovation. It's restricting your business, and you see others doing better around the world. Where are you on the decision, perhaps, to relocate in order to facilitate growing the business?
We absolutely want to see the United States lead in this new arena that we call blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And I think we certainly saw that in the age of the internet 20 plus years ago, that the US had clear regulatory frameworks, and that allowed investors to come in and make those investments. Today, here in the United States, we're actually out of step with some of the other G20 markets around the world. In the UK or in Singapore or in Japan, you have had that regulatory clarity. You asked why Bitcoin has outperformed, and one of the reasons is likely that there is clarity and certainty about Bitcoin's regulatory framework here in the United States. That hasn't been the case with other cryptocurrencies, including XRP. But when you have that certainty, when you have that clarity, if you're an investor or you're a developer using these technologies, you can invest in them and you can build on top of them with clarity and certainty. The U.S. has not provided that certainty yet, and we have been big advocates of a bill that was introduced in Congress called the DCEA, or Digital Commodity Exchange Act. We think it's a very important step in providing that clarity and that certainty here in the U.S.
Do you need that clarity before you IPO, Brad?
Well, that's a great question. We have not been public about what our plans are to go public, with the exception that I've said, I think there will be public crypto companies. I originally predicted we'd see them in calendar year 2020. I think you and I may have discussed that. Davos.
We did.
I think the pandemic has affected a lot of things, and I think that has slowed things down a bit. But look, it's very clear there is enthusiasm for real use cases to solve real problems. And when those are scaled problems, I think you're going to see a lot of investor interest in both the crypto markets as well as the public equity markets.
What does an ideal regulatory framework look like for Ripple and for the digital asset XRP? I just want to give viewers a sense of how it's holding you back. Is it preventing you adding central banks to the platform? Is it preventing customers, particularly international companies, joining the payments network too? What specifically is it preventing at this stage?
Well, oftentimes when I'm speaking to customers and we're talking to them about our product that uses XRP in the payment flows, they will ask me about the regulatory dynamics. And we have had customers say, look, until there's clarity in regulatory frameworks, then we're going to hold off. Now, that has not been the case because of the clarity and the certainty in countries, as I mentioned, like the like the UK or the UAE or Switzerland. You do have companies in those markets saying, absolutely, we're supportive, let's move forward. Here in the United States, we actually have about 95% of our customers are non-US customers, and only about 5% are here in the US. And people say, well, why, you're a US company, why is that? One of the dynamics is we have US companies who are waiting for clarity, and the clarity really emanates from the Securities and Exchange Commission. The US SEC said 2.5 years ago, almost 3 really, that Bitcoin was not a security. And then they came out about 2 months later and said that Ether is not a security. And then they stopped and instead focused their energy on some of the bad actors in the ICO market, the initial coin offering. So for us around XRP and the over 100 companies that are working with XRP, getting that clarity and that certainty, it's very clear to me that XRP is being used by many companies as a currency. You had the U.S. Department of Justice refer to XRP as a currency. You've had FinCEN refer to it as a currency, but you haven't yet had that clarity from the U.S. SEC.
If I gave you $25,000 today, what would you do?